In this position, I'm playing with the black pieces, and I made a huge blunder and completely lost my entire advantage and even gave the advantage over to white. We're going to talk about what you can do in your games after you blunder, and psychologically, how do you recover from that, some practical tips and advice to not let the game totally get away from you, okay? So we'll talk about that in just a second. But first, let's start at the beginning and see how we ended up here. This is round number 6 from my OTB tournament. I have 2 points. I'm coming off 2 incredibly bad losses. And so let's take a look. So I played a King's Indian. They played the Fianchetto variation, where they put the bishop on the long diagonal here. It's called the long diagonal, obviously, because it's the longest diagonal on the board. D6 and C5. So when you play the King's Indian, you have 2 ways you can strike at the center. You can either strike with E5 or you can strike with C5. There are pros and cons to both, depending on what your opponent's doing. You may want to choose one over the other. We're not going to get into the details of that, but I think I did choose the right one here, C5. And you'll notice the nice thing about C5 is when they push by, which is very common, the bishop now can be very effective along this diagonal. As soon as we move this knight somewhere, this bishop is just going to come to life, okay? So I played E6. This is a common idea. You want to open up the file for the rook. You can put some pressure on their king if they don't castle quickly. My opponent was aware of that, and so they did decide to go ahead and castle and get away from the X-ray from the rook, but it's still a good place for the rook because we're putting pressure on E4. I played the move B5. Now, the engine doesn't like it. You're going to see why in just a second. But my idea is very simple. When you have your bishop lined up like this on the queen side, it makes a lot of sense to throw your pawns forward and kind of attack in that section of the board. That is what B5 is trying to do. And for those of you saying, Nelson, didn't you just blunder a pawn? Well, the idea is that the knight was supporting E4. And by taking B5, it's no longer supporting this. And now I have 2 attackers and 1 defender. So we simply trade pawns, which is good for me because now this is open and the diagonal is open and it just kind of opens up a lot of things that I want to use. But my opponent played a move which I did not consider at all. Stockfish says it's the best move, and the reason why this move is getting a dubious symbol. And the move was E5. Very good move. And the point is that if I just take this with the pawn, they're going to push this pawn. Look at that bishop. It's a monster now, and I don't have an easy way to save my rook. The rook is trapped. The knight can't block. It just gets captured. The bishop can't block. It just gets... The only move is E4, but then this knight takes on B5. There's a fork happening here. Yes, I can temporarily defend that, but then the bishop comes out. I mean, white is all over me. Not a position that I wanted to play at all. So I took this with the rook instead of the pawn. But that allows bishop F4, and white is developing very quickly, putting a lot of pressure now on my position. I have to be really careful. And I actually considered just leaving the rook there and playing the move A6. And my idea was, you know, if they go here, now I can play rook A7. I made myself an escape square. I actually have a bishop and a pawn for a rook, and I might win another pawn, so I might end up getting like 2 pawns and a bishop for a rook, which is not an awful trade. In fact, the pawns I feel like are going to be hard to play against. So I was strongly considering that. You can see Stockfish says it's about equal, but ultimately I decided on moving the rook back instead. So they played knight takes B5. They're attacking on D6, and I played the move bishop A6. Very tricky move. There's lots of tactics here, guys. Like, I'm not going to get into all of them because most people don't like when I rabbit trail so many different, lines. But there's pressure on the knight, the rook. But white also has some interesting things with an attack here. But also this bishop is lined up on my rook. So I'm just going to show you one sample line. Takes. If I were to make the mistake and take here thinking, okay, great, I get 2 pieces for the knight. No. They push here. You might be thinking, wait a second, Nelson, you even get another piece. You get 3 pieces for the rook. That's great, right? Well, not quite. Because takes, rook E1. They're attacking my bishop, but more importantly, they're attacking my rook, which is trapped. So they're actually going to get a rook. And I have to watch out for this pawn. Anyway, long story short, it's actually good for white. That's just one example of one line. There are lots of different variations here and options. And so it was a very tricky position. And I think ultimately if they did that, I was going to play maybe rook takes E2 and go for that trade instead. But still, all kinds of tricky stuff that they could have done. Ultimately, my opponent decided to avoid all of it and played knight over here. Okay, so we move on. I played knight E8, defending those weaknesses with my knight and opening up the bishop that we talked about earlier. Okay? They played A4, defend the knight. I played knight D7, queen C2, and knight to E5. Now, when I got my knight to E5, I was feeling much better about the position, because now I've stopped their bishop. The knight is very powerful in the center. And I've pretty much developed my pieces, right? The rook is now free to come out. This is the only piece that's kind of a little passive, but it's doing an important job defending these squares. So everything is pretty good. They brought the rook over. And now I decided, my bishop's not really doing anything on this diagonal anymore. I'm not going to take for this knight. I don't want to give up a bishop for a knight like that. So I decided to reroute it over here. I'm going to f5. I'm going to try to take advantage of this d3 square with my knight. They decided to get rid of the knight. I think they were very scared of the knight landing on d3 and decided to capture it. The problem with this is now my bishop is a monster. This dark squared bishop has no bishop to oppose it, and it's just going to kind of take over the game here, okay? And so I was really happy to see that. They played knight e4. I played a6 just to kick this knight away, and rook over to b8, lining up on the pawn. He played h3 and doubling up on the open b file. My position is looking amazing, and I'm starting to feel really confident here. In fact, a little bit too confident. Rook comes over. I played bishop f5, and they played g4. And it was right here I quickly made a move which was a huge blunder. So I invite you guys, pause the video. What move would you play for black in this position? All right, if you had a chance to look at that. So the move that I played in the game was bishop d7. You can see, look at that eval bar. I mean, I was -3. That is like basically being up a piece. And all of a sudden, that advantage is gone. What did I overlook? That's correct. Knight takes c5 is a beautiful tactic, taking advantage of the fact that my pawn is overworked. The pawn is doing two jobs, defending the bishop and defending the pawn. If I now take the knight, guess what? My beautiful bishop is gone. And my position is not that great anymore. They're going to push this. This bishop's now going to be annoying. The knight's going to be jumping in. Stockfish says it's equal, but this was not the position I wanted to play at all. Okay? So I was so upset at myself when I saw it. I was like, how did I let my guard down and miss this? All I had to do, if you're wondering, was just make the trade here. Make the trade there. I have this. Now I can just capture. White's position is falling apart. It is basically game over if I just make that one simple capture. And I just wasn't even on my radar that there could potentially be a tactic. I thought my position was totally, rock solid. So, bishop d7, knight takes c5. Okay. If you make a mistake in one of your games, you have to take a moment, okay? Take a moment and just say, okay, I messed up. Practically speaking, what is the best way to get myself back on track? Like, what can I do? And so I decided to play the move queen f6. Now, the engine doesn't like it. The engine doesn't like when you sacrifice pieces, but I think practically this was a good move. Here's why. Yes, they're going to get the rook, and now I lose the exchange. However, I keep the amazing bishop, which is literally controlling the board. Like, this bishop is better than a rook at this moment, in my opinion. I'm threatening queen f4, creating this nasty battery where the king is going to have to run, and it's going to be very dangerous. My rook is still really good. This bishop is really good. The knight's going to be able to join the party pretty soon. And so practically I felt like, yeah, this is a great position. This is going to be hard for white to play, right? Even though Stockfish says it's better for white, like, they have to find all these moves. They played queen e4, already kind of an inaccuracy, trying to stop me from going here. And I played h5. Best move. I'm trying to open up the position and weaken this king, right? That's the idea. Oh, and the other point is they can't take me right away or they walk into bishop f5. That's the other thing. Okay? So they played queen f3, trying to trade queens. And on one hand, I didn't want to trade queens because I wanted to keep the attack going. But what I realized was that if I try to force the issue, they can just sack this rook. And we go into an endgame where they're just going to be up a pawn. Because, like, for example, takes, something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, and they have 5 pawns. Like, I don't want that. An endgame where I'm just down a pawn? Like, that's not good, right? And so I was like, no, I can't do that. So I took here. I allowed the trade because this way I get an extra pawn and I keep the amazing bishop because now if they sack their rook for it, my knight's just going to replace it. And my knight's pretty good too. The knight can jump all over the place, right? And 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, we're actually just totally equal now, right? And this is much better, I think, for me. So that's what I went for. Knight takes g4. They played bishop h3, and I activated the rook. Best move again, according to the engine here, defending, but also just putting more pressure, trying to put my rook on the absolute best spot I possibly could. They played a5, bishop f5. Again, I'm just improving, move by move, I'm improving the position of my pieces, just putting them on a little bit better, a little bit better squares. And of course, the other point is like, I'm forcing the rook to move so I can just start taking their pawns. And if they try to take me, I can take here with check. Then I can take the rook, things like that. So they move, and I snag the pawn. They played knight e2. And I wanted to go hunting these pawns. Stockfish says the best way to do it was actually rook a2. Because you attack one of the pawns, but you also keep all of the pressure on the second rank, which is super nice. I went rook b5, which attacks 2 pawns, but I don't keep the pressure on the second rank. So not quite as good, but still, still fine. They played rook c4. Knight h6, they were attacking my knight, so I moved it. Bishop goes back to g2, and now finally I grabbed one of the free pawns. They played f4. I retreated my bishop, and they are going after my pawn here. Now, I could defend this by going like this, then they move the knight, the rook's hitting my bishop. Maybe I go back to f8 or something, but I decided to go on the offensive instead. I played the move rook a2. Knight c1, and bishop check. King goes in the corner, and I played rook a4. What's the point of rook a4? Well, I want to put my bishop on f2, attacking the rook. I want to take this with my rook, and notice how this is cutting off their king. It's almost checkmate, right? It's almost like a back rank checkmate on the side of the board, kind of. It's not checkmate because they can block, but it's putting a lot of pressure on their king. So that's the setup that I was going for. They captured. I went bishop f2. They moved their rook. I captured. And here, white decides to give up the rook for the bishop, which actually is the best move. If they don't do that, and they just take here, I think I was going to play rook h4 or knight g4 and then look for checkmates. And yeah, actually, the engine is telling me there is a forced mate here. So check here. Check. Mate. Yeah, that's a nice one, actually. I'll show you. Check here. Check. Mate. I didn't see it in the game because I didn't calculate long enough because I wasn't sure if they were going to go for it. I didn't think they were going to go for this line. But I knew that I was going to have a massive attack. And I just didn't think there was going to be any way for the white king to survive. And that's true. So because of that, they correctly decided to give up the rook for the bishop. Okay, so I took, and now they grab the pawn. But I still jumped my knight, and I'm still putting a lot of pressure on their king. Rook a2. They're trying to flush my rook off of the second rank. And here I saw an opportunity to go into an endgame where I have 2 against 1. Now, in these types of endings, what you need to understand is that if white is able to sacrifice, like for example, if they trade a pawn for a pawn, and then they sacrifice, let's just say their bishop for the pawn, I would be left with the knight and the bishop, they would be left with the knight. That's going to be very hard to win. Actually, I think I can't win because their knight's going to be too annoying, right? So the only way for me to win is to either trade these pieces and keep the pawns on the board, or at least somehow trade the pieces and keep one final pawn, right? In some manner. So you have to be very careful. You can't just like play random moves. You have to be very smart about what you do. So I decided, and I thought I was being very clever by playing this move. You're going to see that's not the case. I thought bishop e4. I'm so smart. And my idea is I'm forcing a trade of pieces, which is what you want. You want to keep the pawns on the board, but you want to trade the pieces, right? I'm forcing a trade. I thought this is great. If they take me, I go check. And we have this knight and 2 pawns against knight and 1 pawn. It's probably a win. That's what I thought. Turns out I was wrong. My opponent played knight c3, not the best move. But I, again, went with this plan, which is just not the right decision. I went knight f6, and I thought I was totally winning. I thought eventually I'm going to win this pawn, and I'm going to have 2 against the king, and I'm going to win. That's what I thought. Stockfish, you can see, is saying, nope, it's actually a draw. And let's just take a look at why that's the case. So they come up, I play f6. So I made this little, I don't know, like a fortress kind of a deal where their king can't come in, right? There's a wall there. My knight is also helping. My king's going to come up. They can't come in. I go king f7. They go king f4. I go king e7. And I have the table base on over here. And by the way, table base, I'll show you what it looks like. Table base is basically when there's only a few pieces left. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, 7 or less, maybe 8 or less. I'm not sure. It keeps changing. But when there's 7 or less pieces, let's just say, on the board, like there is, if you count, all the pieces, the table base has every single possible outcome stored, and it tells you if it's a draw or a win or a loss. And so it is saying that if white does any of those, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 moves, the game is a draw, right? It just should be a draw. Now, I'm going to kind of keep track of this, and you're going to see there's one critical moment where it becomes not a draw, right? So watch this. They brought their knight in. I attack the pawn. They defend the pawn. I'm rerouting my knight to blockade the pawn. Of course, they don't want to trade, because if you trade and go into a king and pawn ending, it's very easy for me to win. I brought my king over. I'm going to try to sneak around this way. And right here, they have one move and only one move that's a draw. Let me show you the table base again. Check it out. One move, king e3. Every other move that they play loses. King e3 is a draw, right? And I was actually looking at this line a little bit earlier, just so you guys could understand. So the reason it's a draw, we're just going to go very quickly through. This was not played in the game, but just so you know, the point is, if I try to start pushing my pawns, they're going to bring their king around. They're going to plant their knight in the middle. They're going to start checking me. They're going to bring the king right in the middle. And even though it looks like my pawns are going to just go, they just keep checking me in this annoying way where I'm sort of like stuck guarding my knight with my king while their knight keeps checking me. And even though I can get my pawn all the way to g3, they can still check me. And eventually we can trade. I can get a queen, but they're going to get a queen. And even though I have an extra pawn, it's a draw because this queen is going to keep checking. Now, of course, there are tons of other lines that we could have looked at there. I didn't have to trade the knights right at that moment. But the point is, somehow it's a draw by them being annoying with their knight, checking me. And, it's just crazy. However, back to the game, okay? That was if they played the move king e3, which is such a unintuitive, like nobody, I don't think in their right mind would play a move like that. Like, what are you even doing? You have to go back to sneak over here and either come around this way or this way at the right moment. And it's just such a counterintuitive thing. Anyway, they played king g4, a much more human move, but it's a losing move, right? I played king g7. I pushed the pawn. I brought my king up. I'm just pushing these pawns, and they can't really stop me unless they did that crazy stockfish thing, right? King f3, king f6. I move the knight. I'm juggling. I'm putting pressure on the pawn, and eventually we get this position where now they can't save the pawn. The king's too far. I have two attackers. Okay. Still not over, and I have to be a little careful. Let me see if I can give you an example of what I have to be careful of. Basically, the only way that I don't win this is if I allow my opponent to sacrifice their knight for two pawns. Because if they can sack the knight for both of the pawns, then it's just a draw. I can't checkmate with just the knight. So that's what I have to be careful of. But as long as I do it in a smart way, I kept pushing them. I never gave them the opportunity to sacrifice the knight for both pawns. They could only get one pawn, right? That's the critical thing. So here I played g2 check. And I think, yeah, they did sacrifice the knight here. I could take either way. I decided to take with the knight. Just seemed like a little bit less risky of stalemate and whatnot. And then after this, I played knight f4 and they resigned because I'm going to be pushing this pawn. So as an example, I was going to move my king up. Let's just say they go here. I was going to go, let's see, yeah, check. They would go in front. And now I don't want it to be a stalemate, so I'm going to move my knight just away just to give them, let's just say here, some place to move to. Then I can bring my king up, controlling the queening square. They can't go anywhere now to stop me. I get the queen. And of course, this is a pretty easy win. You checkmate with the king and the queen. So it was a 77 move game. And let's just really quickly circle back to that moment, right? Because I could have easily, like right here, I could have easily like just lost control. And I think I made a good practical decision. Again, if the engine doesn't agree, but practically I kept the pressure on my opponent with this move. They were low in time, and so I kind of used that to my advantage as well and just kept all the good features about my position, and ultimately we recovered. So when you blunder, try to find the best practical chance that keeps pressure on your opponent, even if you're maybe down material, or even if it's not quite the way that you wanted it to work out. There are still things you can do. You just have to take a step back, calm down, don't panic, and try to find a good idea. Okay? So yeah, I hope that was helpful, guys. This was round 6. We have one more game. And we'll see how we finish out this tournament. So thanks for watching. And game review. I almost forgot again. I keep forgetting. All right, let me go to the game review really quickly. Here it is. And there you go. This was the game review for this one. You could see that was the huge blunder. That first spike was the big blunder. And then I don't know what this other one was. Something happened later. I forget which one that was. But yeah. Anyway, I'll see you guys in the next round. Thanks.